elsewhere in the world, the first motorized vehicles were beginning to take to the roads. Around New Orleans, Louisiana, however, people still traveled by horse, bicycle, and boat. Our story begins on February 19th, the week before Mardi Gras. The weather was even warmer than usual for February, and all of New Orleans was in a fevered anticipation of the carnival.
Oh, Cher, I am in a fevered anticipation of the carnival. Je pense I'm going to drink pink lemonade all day.
To the east of the city, where the bayou, or boggy swamp, begins, was a great big house called La Grande Maison, which means great big house in French. It was built in 1805 by a plantation owner, Monsieur Cheval the First. Although the family had once been wealthy, they'd had to give up the plantation. And now the house, which overlooked the bayou on one side and had a grand entranceway from the road on the other, was slowly being reclaimed by the swamp, with thick vines and trees nearly covering the once grand entrance. And when it would rain, and rain it did, it became impossible to leave by road, and only a boat could bring one back and forth. Monsieur Cheval, the owner, was a French Creole. Their family had been in Louisiana since before the Louisiana Purchase, and they were proud of their French Creole heritage. But being of bourgeois descent, it was a tradition in the family that all the men go to France to find their spouses. Therefore, Monsieur Cheval's wife, Anne-Thérèse, was a born and bred Parisian. She had a real reputation in New Orleans.
Oh, Cher, did you hear what that French salope said to Charlotte? Have some more lemonade. She is a tyrant. No wonder her daughter has gone mad.
Monsieur and Madame Cheval had a daughter, Celeste. Celeste was a lovely young woman of 20. The people of society had begun to notice that Celeste no longer appeared at any events, and even the group of Cajuns, living down on the bayou, when they'd have some of their foot-stomping fiddle parties, had begun to talk about La Folle Celeste and the strange screams that one could hear echoing in the night. Madame Anne-Thérèse had ridden off to a cousin who lived in England. And that is the only place to find a nurse who can deal with such a mysterious malady as hysteria. This one came from Yorkshire, where the best nurses and governesses of the 19th century were from. And that is how Miss Jane came to step off the train in New Orleans 1 week before Mardi Gras.
Bonjour to you, Mademoiselle Jane. I am the cheval chauffeur, Antoine. Won't you please come with me? We have a long, long ways to go.
Thanking you kindly, sir. And where is La Grande Maison? I was made to understand it was in town.
Ah, no, cher. There is a house in New Orleans that they call the Rising Sun, but we ain't going there. Now, it's a good thing the big rains haven't happened yet today, else we have to take a boat into the bayou to get to where we's going.
I see. I was not aware that I was being taken to a house that was cut off from the rest of the world, but where there is madness, one usually finds a remote house. Let's go.
They reached La Grande Maison, where Madame Anne-Thérèse was waiting by the big front entrance.
Ah, at last! I've been waiting in this infernal humidity for so long. I hate this stupid country, with its large creatures and its people who can't speak a pure French. Merde! Antoine! Go put your things next to the room next to Celeste. Do you know much about La Nouvelle-Orléans, Miss Jane? Huh?
No, Ma'am, I don't know much, but I gather it's very hot here all the time. I myself am used to the cold winds on the move.
Really, this doesn't interest me very much, actually. I don't really care for the English anymore than I care for the Cajuns and all the variety of people we have here who are bastardizing my native language. Rule number 1 in my house, don't go learning any local Cajun from those fiddle-playing idiots who live in the swamp. If I could, I would send them back to Canada. And as for all the Creoles we have, look, I'm not trying to be racist. I know. Actually, I am.
Well, no, I'm not quite sure.
Alors, how about Celeste?
Ah, yes. I understand from your letter that she's had a
Yes, she is suffering from the hysteria. She often cries, sometimes she faints, and on one occasion we found her running outside naked.
Oh, Ma'am, I am sorry to hear this. You've been keeping her locked up, of course.
Yes, in the attic, of course. The doctor says that this affliction happens mostly to young, innocent women. He offered us a cure, you see, gave us this pamphlet, but I can't, oh no, it's too terrible. This is why we take you here.
There. Now, I've often seen cases of hysteria. You mustn't worry yourself that it is complete madness, for it is often cured, though sometimes not. Perhaps I better not talk of my mother's friend Jane Rochester. There was that big fire and the terrible death. Anyway, please, let me go and see her.
And they went upstairs to see Celeste. And then they came downstairs.
Dear God, it's worse than I imagined. Well, I'll start directly tomorrow.
That night, after they'd all dined on some spicy jambalaya that the cook, Mademoiselle Adelaide Marmiche, had prepared, Miss Jane said goodnight and went to her room. There she found on her bed.
Oh, a pincushion. That's extraordinarily useful. How very kind.
And she went to sleep. She snored so deeply, she didn't hear when the rain started. The following morning, Miss Jane awoke to find that the house and grounds were surrounded by water, with the bayou seeming to be on all sides. All that could be seen were the creepers and trees, and many little eyes of many waterlogged creatures watching.
Well, that's given me an idea. Water. Water is the cure.
And she burst into Celeste's room, dragged the sleeping girl out, down the stairs, past the vines, past the maid and Antoine having a romp behind a tree.
Oh, nay, Antoine, you animal!
Past the cook Adelaide Marmiche, who was cutting off a chicken's head. Onto the dock, into a boat, rowed a ways into the bayou, and threw a sobbing Celeste into the water.
There, young lady. That should cure you of your hysteria. Now, swim back to the house. You can use that log for safety. Mademoiselle Jane!
Cried the cook from the shore.
That there ain't no log. That's an alligator.
Miss Jane had a better look.
Oh.
And she took out a gun and shot the gator. This shocked Celeste into silence. She clambered back into the boat, and they went to the house, where she promptly removed her clothes and fainted. That evening, after supper, Miss Jane went for a walk. As she carefully made her way through the vines, squishing mosquitoes the size of small birds, she thought she heard some drum beats, ominously in the distance. And as she hurried back, she could hear footsteps behind her, catching up, faster and faster. She quickly turned around and bumped straight into Adelaide Marmiche, the cook. The cook looked at her and said,
Mademoiselle Jane, listen to me now. You must leave this place. It ain't no place for a nice English lady, here now. I won't leave if I was you. As we Creoles say, faut pas marrer tawa avec saucisse.
Which means in Louisiana French Creole, don't tie up the hounds with sausages.
And also sometimes we say, bon temps de crapaud manque bunda. Well, this one I translate. Idleness leaves the frog without buttocks. You understand what I'm saying?
Miss Jane did not understand.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
But she understood one thing. Something fishy was going on, and it didn't come from the swamp. For the next few days, she tried all her usual hysteria techniques. She gave Celeste hot drinks. She tried giving her a calming back rub. She tried singing songs, and even slapping didn't work. Nothing seemed to work. And every night, when she got back to her room, she was greeted with some strange offerings on her bed. Once it was a dead chicken.
Oh, look what the cat dragged in.
Another time it was a snakeskin.
Oh.
Finally, February 26th had arrived. It was the day of Mardi Gras. In New Orleans, this is the day to go topsy-turvy. People dress in costumes and masks, and they go crazy. Even high-class families like the Chevals were expected to join in. They brought Celeste with them, despite their misgivings. The town was teeming with people, and the hottest topic was a famous Cajun fiddle player by the name of Alain Thibaudot.
Oh, cher, je suis so happy to hear Alain Thibaudot. Je ne peux pas attendre to hear him.
He was a handsome young man who grew up in the bayou not far from La Grande Maison. When he played and sang, women couldn't seem to contain themselves. In fact, that was the beginning of the tradition of flashing at Mardi Gras. Well, as the day became night, Alain Thibaudot took to the stage. He sang the famous Cajun song, Danse de Mardi Gras. Les Mardi Gras sont bien de tout partout, c'est la tour de grands moyens. Ça passe et ça part, demander la charité. Quand même c'est une patate tout dégratin. Capitaine, voyage, chanflant, galant sur notre voisin. Demande la charité pour revenez nous joindre au bateau ce soir. And as he sang, people couldn't stop themselves from dancing. It was as though they were possessed.
Oh, I do love this music. I think I love that man. What's happening to me?
Said Miss Jane. As soon as the song was over, the Cheval family and Miss Jane all looked around as if in a trance and noticed that Celeste was no longer with them.
There she is!
Cried Miss Jane.
She's with that handsome fiddle player. Damn!
The Cajun has got my baby! That Cajun has got my baby!
Cried Anne Therese, while Miss Jane and Monsieur Cheval took chase through the carnival streets of New Orleans with Madame struggling behind. They ran past people throwing beads, people with masks, people kissing each other, people doing more than kissing each other. They ran into the French Quarter, and there Miss Jane caught sight of Alain and Celeste walking into a cottage which had the sign of a snake out front.
Ah non! Pas ça! C'est le voodoo! Cried
Anne Therese.
Ma'am, I don't understand. What is this place? Where are we?
This is the house of Marie Laveau, the famous voodoo queen.
Just then, Mademoiselle Adelaide Marmiche came out of the house, brushing off her hands.
Madame, I have cured Celeste.
You are the voodoo queen, Marie Laveau? You have cursed Celeste?
No, I have cured Celeste. Did you not hear the doctor? The doctor said all she needed was a bit of loving. Well, they may call it hysterical paroxysm, but I understand what they meant. And I was never going to let no doctor do that to my Celeste. Madame, she'd been crazy about that fiddle player a long time. Nowadays married. Happy ending for everyone.
Madame Anne Therese Cheval fainted dead away into Monsieur Cheval's arms. They went home. Miss Jane looked around her. She had spent a week feeling uneasy in a great big house in the middle of the bayou. She finally decided to ask Adelaide Marmiche.
I simply must find out. Have you been leaving strange things in my room?
Adelaide Marmiche took Miss Jane by the arm and said,
Mademoiselle Jane, I left you some Lucky Charm gris-gris, 'cause you had some bad juju with you when you came to the bayou. But it's gone now. Shall we go dance? It's Mardi Gras. This is the day we all allowed to go a little bit crazy. As we Creoles say, laissez le bon temps rouler.
And we shall also laisser les bon temps rouler with the song Bayou Pompon. Oh, rappelle-toi bien la fois j'étais avec toi sur le temps du Bayou Pompon, cher. Oh, rappelle-toi bien la fois j'étais avec toi sur le temps du Bayou Pompon, cher. Oh, rappelle-toi bien la fois j'étais avec toi sur le temps du Bayou Pompon.